Oh my god, this was the weirdest book ever, but I loved it. Hey guys, it's Cherish from the Motley News. I'm here today with another book review video. This time we are talking about the novel Pym by Matt Johnson. This book was pretty damn hilarious. The author just goes out of his way to make all of these weird little jokes about black people in Antarctica in the South Pole. And before I get into the book itself, I do need to let you guys know that this is a satirical update to Edgar Allen Poe's first and last novel called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. Like I said, it was Edgar Allan Poe's only novel, and it was terrible. It was just so atrocious as far as what we know of Edgar Allan Poe. He was a fantastic short story writer and poet. This novel was written out of desperation. The guy needed money, he was a drunkard, probably going crazy. He was just reaching for something. This novel was also serialized, I think, so bits of it would come out in magazines periodically. And I can't imagine what it must have felt like for people who were following this story back in the 1800s. I'm sure that when they got to the end of that novel, they were sorely disappointed because the whole outrage over that one novel is its ending. It's so stupid, up in the air, and has no resolution. Matt Johnson takes that novel to task and tries to write something that completes it. With this satire, I think he's done that. First of all, we need to be introduced to the main character. Chris James is a African American literature professor who was recently fired from his job because he refuses, as a black man, he refuses to teach black literature in his class. He has an interesting way of looking at things. He would much rather, I guess, understand the idea of blackness through the lens of these early American writers. So thinkers like Emerson, Tocqueville, novelists like Herman Melville, Hawthorne. That's what he assigns his students. Anyway, the school is tired of it and they fire him and they replace him with somebody who's all about hip hop studies. So he is out on his ass without a job, but he's super obsessed with this particular novel, The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket, and he finds out that that narrative that Poe wrote centuries back is actually true because he finds that one of the characters has a long lost manuscript of his own. And so he follows this trail of clues with the help of weird individuals all the way down to the North Pole, where Arthur Gordon Pym and his black slash Native American friend, crewmate, Dirk Peters, disappeared. Well, Dirk Peters, the black slash Native American crewmate, he actually got away from that weird ending and made it back to America. Arthur Gordon Pym was lost forever. Nobody knew what happened to him except this professor, Chris James, finds Dirk Peters' weird chicken scratch nonsensical manuscript. And yeah, the adventure begins. Chris, now that he's fired, needs something to do. This is his new obsession. So he hires an all-black crew to go to the South Pole to find this lost land that Dirk Peters and Arthur Gordon Pym stumbled upon. What we do know of the ending of Poe's novel is that it's such a stupid book. But Arthur Gordon Pym and Dirk Peters escape this island civilization that is just covered with black people who were super savage and beasts, very racist stuff. They escape this island of black people, float in their boat, half starved, half dead, and at the very, very end, they are met with foggy white images in the distance, and it's like these strange white giant creatures from the ice. And yeah, that's how it ends. So Chris and his team of black explorers go all the way down to the South Pole. They run into these weird white crazy looking monsters in the ice, and they find themselves accidentally enslaved. I can't tell you any more of the plot, but just know that we have a modern day slave narrative happening in the satire of this Edgar Allen Poe narrative. It's confusing, it's weird, but trust me, this is actually a really great book. Matt Johnson introduces ideas that are, colonialism. He's talking about colorism because our main character, Chris, is actually very, very light-skinned black professor. And that comes up in a very weird, interesting way in parts of the book. We're dealing with slave mentality and oppressive people, captives, who identify with their captors. So, in other words, I'm talking about Uncle Tom's. That happens. You get a little bit of Ben Carson's mentality going on in this narrative. Our writer, Matt Johnson, here's the author photo of him in the back. He's hilarious. He's kind of nailed what black humor looks like. Black humor, African American humor in literature is usually very dark, and sometimes nihilistic, and sometimes, very hopeful, but like very humorous, very sarcastic and snarky. A lot of the jokes, interestingly enough, are in the footnotes, and there are a lot of footnotes in this narrative. That's what makes, I think, that helps the ethos of this main character, Chris Janes. He kind of still writes like an academic. A lot of his hilarious observations and experiences still need footnotes for some reason, and half the jokes are located in there. So you get a really interesting look into the black experience when people are trying to chart a half-ass expedition into the unknown, to the South Pole of all places, and just how black people would react in that kind of situation. I recommend this. I really do. It's a weird, crazy book. You don't have to read the Edgar Allan Poe book. I'm not going to force that on anybody. You don't have to read that in order to understand this. This is pretty much standalone. And the main character, Chris Janes, he actually explains a lot of that book to unknowing readers. So that's really all you need to know. I read it in my undergrad, and I can't say that I regret it because I didn't know that this book would be written. But I certainly regretted it back then. I didn't feel like I had enough time to invest in something that shitty. Turns out it actually paid off. Anyway, it's got great blurbs on the back here. If you're a fan of Colson Whitehead or Percival Everett, they've signed off on it. It's got their stamp of approval. I would say go check it out. So that was the second novel that I've read this year that was on my original goal list. If you haven't seen that video, go back and watch it. I've got maybe 7 more to read, but 2 novels completed by mid-March. That's not bad. if I keep going at this rate, I'll finish all of those books on my list, and maybe I'll pick up some more, and if I do, I will totally let you guys know about that. Until then, check out Pym by Matt Johnson, and let me know what you guys think of it. If you have any more reading recommendations for me, please leave them below, or, tell me what you're reading. I like knowing that too. Until next time, you guys take it easy and happy reading. Bye!